in that Chiefs offense. He'll be good.
Not. You mean Bills?
Yeah, that's what I meant. He's wide receiver 1.
They already said it.
I mean, they literally don't have another option.
They said we're not going to miss a beat switching Stephon Diggs for Giancarlo.
Did they really say that?
Yeah.
That's
what the
incorrect,
GM said.
But
I don't agree with it. I'm just saying. That's what they said.
all right, ready, Shane? Ready, Peter?
Sure. Yep. Well, sure.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Triple Threat Show on WXJM 88.7 FM, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and WXJM.org. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is a little bittersweet. I believe it's our last radio broadcast. We've been doing this for 3 years. This might be our last one. I think maybe next week, but we'll have to see how that works with finals and stuff. Anyway, before we get into it, good luck to everybody on finals here.
Congrats to all the seniors that are graduating.
Yes. Today's show is going to be a lot of playoffs. Hockey, basketball. We're going to break down first round, do some second round predictions, talk about all the surprises that are happening in there, and any other big news in sports that cross our minds. But yeah, today I am joined by my two friends and co-hosts,
Shane Brisland
and
Peter.
So, big show. How are you guys doing?
Just trying to get to graduation at this point. It's kind of like, let's get this over with already. But, last undergrad class, I just have finals and then I'm done.
All right. Tell them how you really feel, Shane.
I'm a sad boy. The real world is scary and I don't want to go, but I have to jump off that cliff eventually,
Okay, then. What about you, Peter? How you doing?
I gave you guys, when we were discussing, for those who don't know, we have fantasy football, and we were trying to figure out when our fantasy draft was, and people were pushing for June, and I immediately was like, yeah, I'm not going to be here, so that's not going to happen. My May is the last month of sanity. Once May happens, I will essentially be home for probably a day or two at a time, and then I will be gone again. So I have so much stuff going on in the next 3 months that I've literally started to make a calendar on days that are available and not available. So it's awesome. I'm really, really excited for what is going to be an incredible opportunity, but I've already started to tell family members for like trips that I was invited on. I can't come to this. I'm sorry.
Are you allowed to disclose what you're doing, or?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing NDA about it. I have been, for people who have been listening to the show and people around, I am studying to go to law school. And I actually initially have accepted an offer to go to a certain law school. But that could change based off of other things that are going on right now. And over the next few months, I will be traveling to different colleges. I'll be taking I'll be taking one huge exam. And then I have several trips that I have to go on. So it's an exciting time. And the most bittersweet about it is come August, I will no longer live in Virginia. So that will be interesting.
Well, congrats. Law school is nothing easy to get into, and it sounds like you have options. So that just is a testament to all the hard work you put in to the application process.
Yep. Thank you.
That's a couple months away. We'll worry about that when we get there, right?
Dude, I've literally started to break down with people like, okay, I need to move all this stuff across the country. What parts can I throw away? What parts can I leave here? What part of my life do I not need? It was easier with undergrad. It was only a 2-hour journey away. I could just go back home. I can't do that anymore.
Ugh. All right. Well, since you're so busy, Peter, I'll let you make the decision here. Which playoffs would you like to start with?
Let's start. Honestly, NBA playoffs has been pretty boring, so let's start with hockey.
Alrighty then. The Stanley Cup playoffs are underway. We have all but 2 rounds decided at this point. They are both in Game 7, the 2 best words in sports. It's that season. It's Game 7 season, guys. It's very exciting. But all but 2 games are decided, so we know most of the second round matchups. Let's go through real quick, and I think on our last show, none of the series were decided yet, if I remember correctly, right?
Carolina may have swept the Caps by then, but that may have been it.
All right, so we'll
the Rangers, not Carolina.
Yeah, we'll start down there in that one because those 2 first round series were over at puck drop, basically.
Everyone kind of penciled in the next round before the series began. We all knew it was going to be Rangers-Carolina because the Islanders and Caps limped into the playoffs. It seemed like they didn't want it with how many times they gave it away to other teams, but they snagged it at the last second and proceeded to win the honor of a first-round exit. And so this is kind of the big matchup in the Metro. Rangers-Carolina were clearly in a tier of their own in the Metro Division, and now they face each other in the quarterfinals like everyone thought they would, and this will be a really good playoff series. The Rangers, their star players are playing their best. Artemi Panarin is exceeding expectations. Igor had a phenomenal series, and the Capitals just looked awful, but I don't want to discredit how good the Rangers are and how silly they made the Caps look. Carolina, a bit of the same. I think that series was a bit closer than it looks on paper. They had a few huge comebacks, a few overtime games, some really close games, but Carolina, by and large, was the better team and can come up in those clutch moments with their star power.
Yeah.
So this is going to be a really good matchup.
No, absolutely. And the big thing for me when I'm breaking down this matchup, at least, is discipline. We saw, even though the Rangers swept the Capitals, they took way too many penalties in that series.
They were just lucky the Caps couldn't score on the power play.
Right, and the Caps only had 1 goal on the power play. It was, I don't remember exactly how many power plays they had, but I believe they were somewhere in the realm of 1 for 20.
Yeah.
Which is really bad, guys. For people that don't know, it's really bad. That's not something that Carolina's power play is going to, copy. Their power play is much better. They're not trotting out a bunch of geriatric people to
a bunch of AHLers
to go up against one of the best goalies in the league, and honestly a really good penalty kill that the Rangers have. And that's going to be, I think, the deciding factor in this series. If the Rangers can play the way that they did against the Capitals and be disciplined, they can win this series. If Carolina can just do what they did against the Islanders, they'll win this series. It comes down to the discipline of the Rangers, I think.
This just seems like a 6 or 7 game series.
It does. I have Carolina taking this in 6, just because, there's no reason. Penalties aren't like something that you can just shut off. And
you also have Matt Rempe. You know he's going to take a few.
Right, and they just kept doing it. There was no reason for them to do it, and they just kept taking. And it wasn't always bad penalties, but there were a handful of bad penalties in every game. So,
and Carolina is one of the more disciplined teams in the league. They have one of the best coaches in the league who will hold their players accountable. If it's a matchup on who is going to be the more disciplined team, I'm taking Carolina. If it's the matchup on depth scoring, which is the most important thing in the playoffs, I'm taking Carolina. If we're going on team defense, I'm taking Carolina. The only thing I see the Rangers having is if their star players show up, their star players are better than Carolina star players. So if they can steal the series for them, that's the only way I can see them winning, which is not a bad thing. But it's just I see more scenarios where Carolina comes out on top than the Rangers.
Yeah, no,
And
definitely.
I want to say Frederick Anderson coming back from injury, he's looked phenomenal so far. Like, we saw glimpses of it previously in Carolina. He was phenomenal in Toronto for a bit. Frederick Anderson is a really good goalie, and the key word is when healthy. And as long as he can stay healthy in front of this really good Carolina team, again, they're contenders. Both these teams are contenders. I see more situations where Carolina comes up on top because I stick with depth. You're going to hear me say it a lot. I've said it plenty of times before. I'm going to pick the team with a better depth, and I'm choosing Carolina in 7.
Yeah, no, a lot of the same reasons. I have Carolina in 6. This Rangers team doesn't have. I mean, the Carolina is just better than them, I think.
Carolina doesn't have a Zibanejad or a Panarin or a Fox.
They don't need one.
Yeah.
They have like 10 guys that are mid-tier stars.
Yeah.
You know?
They kind of have like 6 Chris Kreiders or
Right.
something like that. Like, they have a bunch of guys who will get you 50, 60 points every season. But that's from like first line to third line. And their fourth line is nothing to scoff at either.
Right, and that's really good.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Also the best defensive core in the league. Like, they have Dmitry Orlov as like their bottom pair defenseman.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, so I've got Carolina in this series. You've got Carolina in this series. It should be a fun one, though. It's not going to be like that first round where they just kind of got blown
They just
out.
cakewalked their way into the second round.
Yeah. Another team that just kind of cakewalked their way into the second round, the Florida Panthers.
That was a surprising one.
It was. I thought the Lightning would at least be able to put up more of a fight. It's not like their team is that bad. You know, they might be on the decline from their dynasty type run, but you know, they're not that bad, are they, Shane?
I think it just shows how good Florida was in this series and how good of a team they are. Tampa, I think this series was closer than the score let it on to be, but again, Tampa doesn't have the depth that they used to. Kucherov, Stamkos, they had their moments, but Vasilevsky, I don't know, he's still recovering from an injury. He just hasn't looked that great this series or this past season. Maybe give him a year to recover and fully heal, get his mentality right, and we can see that Vezina winning future Hall of Fame goalie that we're used to. But this wasn't Tampa's year. Like, Kucherov, phenomenal season, but he can't do it all in the playoffs with a team as stacked and as deep as Florida.
You know, Florida was really good. They didn't even get that much production out of Tkachuk, and he hasn't been that huge guy like he was last year. Big Bob.
Fantastic. He had probably had the save of the season in that series.
He did his thing.
It's like no look behind the back, desperation save. It was a phenomenal save in the first round. And it shows like he was just the better goaltender the entire series. And then also Carter Verhaeghe is just Captain Clutch. He's like at 6 overtime game winners in the playoffs.
And all of those are in the last 2 years, it feels like.
Yeah. And the company, there's not a lot of players with that many overtime goals. Like, the rest of the people on that list are Hall of Famers. Now, Carter Verhaeghe is not a Hall of Famer, but that is some really good statistics in the playoffs for a clutch player.
Definitely, yeah. And they'll be looking at taking on either the Bruins or the Maple Leafs, who, of course, as we all knew, went to 7 games.
It's 7 games. And if history tells us anything, Boston is going to win this game 7.
I know. And that's what I'm trying to avoid on my analysis of this, is, this is what always happens. It's going to be Boston. But
this has been an interesting series.
It has been.
The Leafs is a soap opera right now.
Right, they didn't have Nylander in the beginning. Or they
didn't have Nylander. And they managed to squeak out 1 win in 3 games, so they were down 2-1.
They get him back.
And they had all their big boys back, and then they proceed to lose Game 4. They're down 3-1. And then, best goal scorer in the league, almost 70 goals, MVP last year, injured. And you think, all right, they're done. Like, they also swapped goaltenders. Lost their best player. You're done. The series is over. They proceed to win 2 straight games without Austin Matthews. That was not on my bingo card.
No, definitely not.
Lose Austin Matthews and proceed to win 2 more playoff games. And this series doesn't make sense. But William Nylander, props to him, though, for scoring 2 goals. He's always been the Leafs' best playoff performer. 2 goals in an elimination Game 6 to send it to Game 7. And Justin Wohl for shutting out the Bruins to help get them to Game 7.
Yeah, no, that team knows how to play with their back against the wall.
Yeah. They just can't finish with their back against the wall.
Not having Austin Matthews is tough. I mean, really, it's tough. You kind of glazed over it a little bit. He's an MVP player, MVP caliber player, one of if not the best goal scorer in the entire NHL right now.
He's gonna be top 5 in MVP voting too.
Right, he's insane. And you lose him for a crucial Game 7 against a team that's really been your boogeyman for
the past decade.
The past whatever. I don't think they've won a series against Boston in the playoffs in this millennia.
Yeah.
And the last 4 times that they've played, it's played out like this. It's gone to Game 7, which that's a crazy streak. You know, you don't play 4 straight series and go to Game 7 in every single one. You know, dating all the way back to like 2015 or something. That's a completely different 2013. That's a completely different team. You know, that 2013 team and this 2024. That's 10 years.
Yeah.
And
Phil Kessel was a Maple Leaf. That's how long ago it was.
And yet they're still going to Game 7 every single time, and it's art. It's what it is.
They saw Patrice Bergeron in their nightmares. He's not there, but his ghost still remains.
But this Game 7 should be interesting. It's back in Boston, and one of the things I've been looking at for Boston, it's not necessarily a bad thing. They're one of the first successful teams I've seen to do like a true goalie tandem. You know, you talk about goalie tandems with, you know, just having a backup goalie that plays a third of the season. You know who the starter is. But there's a solid backup in there that'll come in and play some games, spell him, so he's ready for future more important games like the playoffs and stuff. So he can be there and play 20 straight games. But what Boston's been doing is on off with Swayman and Ullmark, and it's really interesting to me. And now you hit a Game 7, and I believe it's Ullmark's turn in net right now. I'm pretty sure Swayman started last night.
Yeah.
But who do you go with in Game 7? Do you continue this Do you continue with the switch, or do you go with the better one? They've both been playing well.
From what I've heard from their head coach, from the beginning of the series, he said he's not going to overthink it. Last season, he rode the hot goalie, and it didn't work out. This season, he committed to doing every other, like he's done the entire season, and he's not going to overthink it. He's not going to change that. No matter what the result is, he's going every other. So Swayman played this game. It's probably going to be Ullmark next game.
Is that the right move? What would you do in his shoes?
There's no bad move.
Right.
Both of those goalies can win you a series. Both of those goalies aren't going to be the reason why you lose Game 7. As you saw, because playoff hockey, especially when it comes to the more important games, everything's going to be tighter. Everything's going to be a attention detail game, a lot less scoring, usually. And especially how the series is gone, it's going to be a low-scoring series. It's not going to be about who makes more saves. It's going to be about who makes more goals, who is going to finish. And that is the important part right now. So goaltending is the least of my worries if you're the Boston Bruins. I would be more worried about not scoring a goal last game and getting shut out.
Yeah, and their starts have been really slow. The last 2 games in the first period, they have a combined 3 shots on net. And it's not how you can win. It's not how you win games.
But the Leafs, they're an animal with their back against the wall. They were desperate, and you can tell they want it. There's so much drama in that locker room. They have the history. The entire hockey mecca is on their back, counting them out, and they have the most pressure out of anybody else in the league. Because I don't know if you saw what Nylander said. Stop whining. This isn't juniors. which is such a good like insult if you want to get your teammate riled up. But William Nylander, he is so clutch in the playoffs. Boston's going to need Marchand and Pasternak, who've usually been clutch in the playoffs, to step up here. But it's going to be a Game 7. Going to be some good hockey.
I love me some Game 7 hockey.
All that being said, Bruins in 7. I can't not pick the Bruins.
Can either of these teams beat Florida?
It's possible, but Florida's definitely the better team.
Who gives Florida a better matchup?
I'm going to say the Bruins. Toronto, I do not trust their goaltending. At least the Bruins, you can trust Ullmark or Swayman to steal a series, but I just don't see how either of those teams beat Florida. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. You were saying the same thing about Florida last season, where like there's no way they beat the Bruins, and they did.
They did do that.
So, playoffs, anything can happen.
The other Game 7 that's going on, we talk about Game 7s. Dallas, Vegas. I'm so glad the series goes 7.
I think everyone predicted this would go 7.
It's awesome. I love this series. It's so much fun to watch. You have Dallas, who's... I mean, both of these teams are arguably the two best teams in hockey are playing each other right now. Arguably. But goes to Game 7. Vegas has made a switch at goaltending. I don't remember if it was because of injury. I'm pretty sure it was.
No, it was... Was he injured again?
I think so.
I thought because he lost like 3 straight games, so they put in Aiden Hill.
I don't remember. But Logan Thompson switches out for Aiden Hill. Aiden Hill, who carried Vegas to a cup last season, comes in. He's 1-1 so far.
Has a shutout.
It does have a shutout. In an elimination game, no less.
Yeah.
It's a huge performance from him last night. We head to Game 7, back in Dallas. Who wins this series, Shane?
I know I have Dallas winning this game, but Vegas just has the star power. Because, as I said, Dallas is a really deep team, but Vegas has those finishers. You have Jack Eichel, you have Jonathan Marchessault, who's time and time again has showed up clutch in the playoffs. They have a very deep defensive core, like with Hannafin, Petrangelo, Shea Theodore, not even to mention Martinez and McNabb. That Vegas is just so stacked. Like, this could easily go either way, but it's hard to count out the defending Cup champions with how well they looked last night.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. I love the Stars, but Vegas, I think, set the tone for this series in Game 1 and 2, taking both of them at home. And Dallas adjusted. You know, they also took 3 and 4 in Vegas, but it just feels like Vegas has kind of controlled this series the whole time.
Well, I feel like you could say the Stars, when they won their 3 straight games, they looked like the better team. Like, the depth showed up. But Vegas, their star players are just so much more noticeable. Like Jack Eichel, Marchessault, Hannafin, Petrangelo, you know when they're on the ice. The big players for Dallas, you know, Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson, they can kind of disappear at times. I mean, Wyatt Johnson has had a phenomenal sophomore season. He has excellent chemistry with Jamie Benn, has a few clutch goals, but he's just not on the same level as the Jack Eichels of the world. But not to count out Ottinger and Miro Heiskanen. Like, if they're going to win this series, it's because those two have the best games of their lives.
Right, and they've been playing really good hockey, too. I mean, really everyone in this series has been playing really good hockey. It's been a lot of fun.
It's a tragedy that one of these teams can't make it to the second round, because neither of them deserve it.
But yeah, Colorado, who will be one of these two teams' matchup in the second round, just kind of dismantled the Jets.
Yeah.
What? Because they scored at least 5 goals every single game of that series. You were going up against the probable Vezina winner this season in Connor Hellebuck, and it didn't matter. He was like Swiss cheese for that entire series.
Connor Hellebuyck had an interesting press conference because he said that he felt in that playoffs he was playing some of the best hockey of his career because he said there was not a lot of goals that he saw go into the net, which means that the team in front of him didn't do him favors because that means Colorado was getting bodies up front, they were taking away his eyes, and he couldn't see anything that was going past him. So I think that's more of a testament to how good Colorado is offensively, because you have Cale Makar, who just went coast to coast in one of those series. Nathan MacKinnon, Rantanen, that star power is just so bright that they can easily steal a series no matter what goes in it. And everyone fears playoff Nathan MacKinnon. And I guarantee you he's going to be the biggest obstacle for Dallas or Vegas next round.
I mean, definitely. You have an MVP season.
Yeah.
You're going to be a big obstacle. Yeah, no. That was my big takeaway from the series. The Jets' defense was bad. They were really bad.
Yeah. And one of the defensemen scored on them, their own goalie. Unfortunate bounce, but yeah, Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar. They're the two-headed dragon that's going to be hard to slay.
It's going to be tough.
But if any of those teams can do it, Dallas and Vegas. But again, getting out of the Central is going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah.
Going to do that.
No, it's going to be a much different series than Dallas Vegas is right now. That one's very physical, gritty, but also exciting and high-paced. This isn't going to be quite as physical, but it's going to be a lot more high-paced, fast-paced. Final two series is in round 2. Vancouver takes care of business against Nashville, down to their third-string goalie. I don't know, man.
It was such a low shooting series.
It was. The defenses for both of these teams played great.
Yeah.
They got in front of shots. They sacrificed their bodies, did a lot of block shots. It's not an easy thing to do. Just willingly stand in front of a puck coming at your face 100 miles an hour. Not something that I particularly would look forward to doing.
I don't know, if I was getting paid a few million, I think I would jump in front of it.
But no, these two defenses played great. It goes to 6 games. Vancouver takes this series. It's concerning for them.
Not having a goalie, especially with the likes of McDavid and Draisaitl and Zach Hyman.
Yeah, on the other side. You're down to your Latvian friends. Forget his name. But, down Demko, down Casey DeSmith. You're onto your third string, and, your third string's playing well. It's not like he doesn't belong there with how he's playing. I know it's Nashville, and it's going to be a completely different animal than Nashville is. Nashville doesn't have that kind of star power at all. Right.
Yeah, but hockey is kind of like a random backup. If a goalie's hot, it's hard to beat a hot goalie. It could be anybody from the minors, and if they come up and they're on a hot streak, there's no scoring on that goalie. So, who knows? Maybe he can do that for the series. It's going to be a tough test with the Oilers.
Right, and
they took care of business against the Kings. They dominated them. The Kings couldn't keep up with the scoring race that Edmonton is on, and I want to say this is going to be an offensively heavy series because both of these teams, because Vancouver, you have a third string goalie. Edmonton defense has never been their strong suit. They just prefer to outscore their competition. And both of these teams have such talented offenses. One of the best games was when Vancouver was down 3-1 in the final minutes of the game. Brock Besser completes his hat trick to tie up the game, and then they proceed to win it in overtime. And I'm so happy for Brock Besser. He's had a rough few years, underperforming, dealing with injuries and a death in his family. And it's finally, he's able to get his mentality right, have everything go for him, have the stars align, and he's had a phenomenal season, a phenomenal playoffs, and he's going against a great matchup with the Oilers.
Yeah, no, this is going to be high scoring. I worry. My main concern in this series is if Silvos can hold up.
Yeah.
You know, you shut down the Predators, 1-0 game to get out of there, but it's not Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
The National Predators didn't have a Connor McDavid. I mean, not a lot of teams have a Connor McDavid.
There's only one of those.
Yeah. That's going to be a tough matchup.
But yeah, no, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot tougher for them to get out of it.
But Edmonton's defense is bad enough where I think Vancouver can keep up, because they can definitely keep up with. They have Quinn Hughes, Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, Miller. They can keep up with that offense. But it's just, who's going to score more? That's the question here.
That is the question.
And I can never bet against McDavid,
The Oilers,
Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman in a scoring race. So
Right.
I'm going to take Edmonton in the series.
Oilers are the last team you wanted to get into a scoring race with. But yeah, that's the NHL playoffs so far. We have the second round coming up in just a second. Game 7s are happening. I love Game 7s. You love Game 7s, Peter. I know you do.
Yeah.
Peter here's the biggest Game 7 fan in the world. Never met a bigger Game 7 fan in my life.
Yeah. Definitely.
You say those words and he perks up. Anyway, we're going to move into basketball. It's a very similar situation. All but one series has been decided in basketball, and that might be the most boring series.
I think there's...
Oh, no, never mind. I was thinking... No, yeah.
No, there's one.
Yeah, all but one.
Mavs won.
Yeah, Mavs won last night. So it's been, like Peter said at the beginning, a relatively boring...
I didn't like any of the starting matchups. They didn't match up well against anybody. I think almost all my predictions, except for 76ers, ended up coming true.
Yeah, I mean, that was by far the best series.
Yeah.
In this entire first round. The Knicks 76ers, although it was 4-2, all 6 of those games...
And Embiid got injured as well.
Yeah, all 6 of those games were tight. They were close. And
like I said, if Embiid doesn't get injured, they win that series, and he got hurt. So it's just... Once Embiid went there, they were a great team, and then he gets hurt. He's in their entire team. So
I don't want to overlook the Knicks either, though, because what the Knicks did, it's not like Joel Embiid wasn't playing. He was still out there for 40 minutes a game, and he was still able to dominate in the paint for a lot of the game. He wasn't able to do that for all 6 games, but he was able to do it for 3 out of the 6 games, and the Knicks still won one of those.
yeah, a player can't do everything. The process ended up failing. As the 76ers fans like to say, trust the process. The process ended up failing. They didn't win a ring, and they're not going to. Joel needs to find a new team. That team is just it's not it.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting situation, and you bring up the process as failure. Joel Embiid said at the beginning of this season that he would want out, basically, if they didn't start to win. And his contract, there's a player option after 2026, 2027, or on that season.
Yep.
Does this make it so that he's definitely out of there then?
They've sold their future. So, I mean, they sold their future for players that were past their prime. It's a story as old as time in the NBA, where teams that are run by general managers that think that they can get a quick ring to keep their... Because if you win a ring as a general manager in the NBA, you essentially have a 5 to 10 year ticket of you can do whatever you want. Because you can then say to the owner, hey, when was the last time you guys won a ring? When was the last time you guys won a ring before I won it for you guys? And then they said, well, we haven't won it in a while. And then you have a 5 to 10 year period where you can do whatever you want. And so it's a story as old as time in the NBA where teams will get a player that is well past their prime and be like, okay, here's my up and coming new star. I'm going to put this guy in. And these guys just, they're not ready yet to not be that guy. And we saw it with James Harden. We saw it with Tobias Harris with the 76ers. The 76ers just sold their future for guys that were not ready to not be the guy at that point. And it ended up hurting them.
So at the end of his contract, Joel Embiid will be entering his age 33 season.
It's the NBA now, though. LeBron's about to be 67.
The difference here is Joel Embiid has a really long injury record, right? LeBron James, one of the most incredible things about his career is how short his injury record is for 20 years in the NBA.
And now we're just all seeing LeBron's injuries being piled up right at the end.
I mean, that's what happens when you get older, though, you know?
I still think that it has to do with how the Lakers use him, but that's a story for another day. But because that's a very big.
We'll talk about the Lakers. Yeah. They fired their coach, so
they fired everybody.
We'll get there in a second, but
everybody.
But yeah, Joel Embiid at age, or I guess 32. Excuse me, I was off by a year. At age 32, he can exercise a player option, and he's still most likely going to be a top 10 player in the league at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Unless injuries just.
That's why I don't want to say 100% because of his long, extensive injury history.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because he is so good at basketball, but that kind of injury history doesn't lend itself to playing until you're 40 like LeBron did. You know,
yep.
His career is going to have to get cut around 35 max if he continues to get hurt like he does. Yep. So how you talk about just now GMs mortgaging the future for a aging star
not ready to take a back seat
like a Joel Embiid.
Yep.
Is this a similar situation? Is this a situation where Joel Embiid potentially asks for a trade next offseason?
I think that Joel asks for a trade. But if he doesn't or he can't, at 32, Joel will still be able to be that guy for 1 to 2 more seasons. And then I agree with you. Joel can probably play until 35 at where he's at. I'd probably say 34 is when he'd start to take a really steep decline.
Mm-hmm.
But I will see. I think he'll play until he's around 36. If you get him when he's 35, 36, then yes, you're mortgaging your future. But if you get him at 32, you still have 4 years. So, try and get him for less. You can usually get superstars for less that have a significant injury, list. But
right, yeah. He's making he's going to be making $51 million next season. That is not that if he's going to if the Sixers are going to trade him, there's going to be an incredible trade package for that.
You have to realize that, and I know you have people like Shaq on TV that say, I'm not going anywhere if I'm making $50 million, but a lot of these players just want to win.
He wants a ring. That's what his point was at the beginning of the season. He said, "Hey, Philly, show me that you can win, and I will stay here as long as I can."
Yep.
They did not show him that. They went out at the trade deadline and they got a shooter in Buddy Hield, the guy that I really liked the fit with. He can spread the floor and leave Joel Embiid one-on-one, and they didn't play him for most of the game. Like, straight up, he did not see the court for most of the game. And I know it's a whole different thing. He didn't play great down once he came to Philly and everything, but he came in Game 6, and he hit like 7 threes. You know, he spaced the floor in a game where Tyrese Maxey played. He couldn't make a basket to save his life.
Yeah.
I don't know. There were some things that I didn't agree with how they ended up managing their players in that playoff series.
There's an epidemic in the NBA of how truly horrible the coaching has become. Coaches used to actually have, the ability to say stuff to players and essentially be like, you're playing like a bum, you are a bum, change it or you're on the bench, And now all these coaches are essentially going to their star player and being like, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to do, LeBron? What do you want to do, Giannis? And you should not be getting paid $10 million a year, like some of these coaches are, to essentially take a backseat to a player that doesn't know as much as you. Now, that's a completely different case than the case of LeBron, because LeBron knows better than any coach in the NBA. But when it comes to the 76ers, I'm not a Buddy Hield fan. I think when that thing happened, I even said to you, Jeremy, the Kings and the 76ers are two different organizations. He's not going to put up those same numbers. And it's true, he's not. And you can just blatantly see it from the scheme and how they play things. But Joel has to leave the 76ers. The process failed. The only good player in the entirety of that process was Joel Embiid. You guys had Jahlil Okafor. You had Ben Simmons. And these were the three guys that were supposed to be the process. I don't think Jahlil's even in the league anymore.
Markelle Fultz was supposed to be the
Markelle Fultz, right. And Ben Simmons has played 20 games in the last 3 years. So, when are we going to stop calling it the process and start realizing that the only process was drafting Joel Embiid, which, mind you, they did not think that they were going to draft initially because of how injured he was at Kansas.
Yeah, no, it was just tanking with a fancy label.
Yep.
And they were really bad at tanking. They were really good at tanking, but they were really bad at drafting.
Well, because the person that drafted Joel and had this idea, they fired, even though that they were openly admitting that they were tanking. And yet, when you openly admit and your ownership is fine with tanking, why are you firing the guy who is the mastermind behind everything, and then you bring in a new regime that then drafts scrubs? They're bums. I mean, look at the top picks in that draft of Markelle Fultz. The number 1 was Markelle Fultz. The number 2 was Lonzo Ball. Number 3 was Jason Tatum.
Yeah.
And pretty much everyone said going into that draft, Jason Tatum is the best player here. I think that was also Luka's draft as well.
No, Luka and Trae Young were a year or two before. They came into the league before him.
Did they?
Yeah.
But Jason Tatum was considered the best player, and they were like, oh, I don't know if they already had Tobias at that point. I think they had a small forward, but they were like, we don't need Jason Tatum. Yes, you do. So the process is dead.
Yeah, no, it's gone. It's been dead.
Moving on to
there's one second round matchup that I want to talk about before we get there, because the rest of this first round, it's kind of been chalk. The Mavericks Clippers, the Clippers just ran out of gas because their stars are old.
Kawhi wasn't being the usual playoff.
Kawhi was hurt.
Yeah,
He played like one game and then he was done. Same thing with the Suns. Their stars are old, and they don't know how to play defense against the Timberwolves. But that
Kevin Durant whispered in the Timberwolves ear, "When can I come over?"
But Timberwolves Nuggets series starts tonight. That is probably the only. I think the Western Conference series, both of them could be good, but this Timberwolves Nuggets series is really interesting to me. You have the Timberwolves, who an elite defense, an electric young player in Anthony Edwards,
Michael Jordan's son,
and they're going up against the Nuggets, who, defending champions, have the best player in the world, and play just really good team basketball with they know how to play within the system, right? And that's one of the reasons why they're so dominant. The rest of the league doesn't really do that as well as they do.
I think the rest of the league seems to forget that the Nuggets don't really play very hard in the regular season, and they wait until the playoffs because they don't want their players injured. So people just forget about guys like Jamal Murray and just write him off as, oh, he's horrible. He's not very good. And then he comes into the playoffs and he's one of their best players, and people are like, oh, right. He did this last year.
It's 2 game-winning shots against the Lakers.
Clutch gene.
Yeah, no, he's got the clutch gene. But this Nuggets team kind of sleptwalked through that Lakers series.
They didn't have to.
I know.
They have to try.
And that's scary. They're still a sleeping giant. They haven't woken up yet. And that is why I think this series is going to be really interesting. Because if Denver was awake, alert, and ready to go by the end of that Lakers series, I think they steamroll Minnesota, quite honestly. Rudy Gobert is not a good enough inside presence, and he's a black hole on offense. So he's not going to be enough against Nikola Jokic to really make a difference. But since they've been sleepwalking, and I still think it's going to take a game or two for them to snap awake, this series can be good. It can be really good. The Timberwolves defense also is nothing compared to the Lakers defense. Jaden McDaniels is going to be able to clamp just about anybody on the outside. Jamal Murray is going to that's going to be a really good matchup between him and Jaden McDaniels. I'm curious what you think how you think this series is going to go.
I'm never going to count out Jokic until it happens. Like you said, he's the best player in the league. Anthony Edwards is today's Michael Jordan, in the sense of he is a flashy. I'm not saying he's as good as Michael Jordan, but he is a flashy player that people love to watch. When people watch him play, the thing that they just always say is he's just incredible to watch. It's like watching, a master at his craft.
Right.
It's just incredible. It's so much fun to watch him play.
Yeah.
Michael Jordan had to deal with Bird. Anthony Edwards has to deal with Nikola Jokic. And until Jokic either retires or he starts to dip off like Bird, hopefully Jokic doesn't personally asphalt his entire mom's driveway like Larry Bird decided to do and end his career. But until that happens, Anthony Edwards is going to lose. And so Nuggets are going to win. Nuggets in 7. No, 6.
I have it Nuggets in 7 as well. I'm just worried about the Nuggets starting slow.
They'll start slow. They'll grab a couple of games.
Right. That's my main issue.
I think you guys also forgot to mention they're facing a Minnesota sports team. Prophecy's written. They're not going to do anything past the first round.
That's true. I mean, we also have to remember that Cat is on that team.
Cat's on that team. Rudy Gobert's on that.
It's a good team.
It is a really good team. Like there's a reason that
we forget about Cat's on that team because Anthony Edwards is just so much fun to watch.
I know.
But Cat is on that team. Arguably, Cat is the better player.
He isn't.
I know, but arguably, it's pretty close.
Cat disappears in big moments. Anthony Edwards has been able to step up in those big moments.
Anthony Edwards can't play defense.
Yeah, there's skills that they're good at, and there's skills that they both need improving at.
Yeah.
But
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I'm like, is Karl Anthony Towns still on the Lakers? So I'm like, you guys are not talking about him. I'm like, yeah, I saw that.
The dude is just so much fun to watch. I mean, if anyone's ever played NBA 2K, it's like you took Michael Jordan's dunk package and just stuck it on a new rookie. And the guy sticks his tongue out like Michael Jordan does, shoots like Michael Jordan does. He's just so much fun to watch. He talks like Michael Jordan does.
It's fun because there's not a lot of players in the game today that you can like feel the passion through the screen like you can with Anthony Edwards, and it's nice to see. You know, like all these other guys are like, I'm really good at basketball, but he's like, I'm really good at basketball, and I love doing it. You know,
Jokic just doesn't care.
Right.
Jokic is fun to watch because you are witnessing a guy that truly wishes he could do anything else. Anything. And people are saying, well, why doesn't he do something else? Why doesn't he retire then? He clearly loves it. No, he just knows that he gets paid ridiculously well. This guy says at the end of interviews and like broadcasts, every single time, and you can see the disdain that is on this man's face. He's like, I want to go home. Like, he does not want to be there. But he knows that he's not going to get tens of millions, hundreds of millions, anywhere else than the NBA.
Right. It's a business decision.
Everyone who has a job that they hate, watch Jokic. You will see the same face that you have at the end of your 9 to 5. You will see the same disdain on his face after he just played 35 minutes a game. You will see the same hatred for his life, and you will just realize the only difference between you and him is the fact that he gets paid $30 million a year and you don't.
He's corporate America's mirror.
Yeah.
I did want to talk a little bit about the Lakers, because it is a sports media show, so we have to talk about the Lakers.
LeBron James.
No, right?
That's about to be who this guy may retire.
He might retire. He's not going to retire. But he might be out of the Lakers. And the Lakers fired their coach. Darvin Ham is gone.
Fired everyone.
Everyone is gone.
The entire coaching staff was fired. I don't think I've ever seen this before. Usually they keep one person. They fired every single person.
This move feels less like, hey, it's time to make a switch. And it was time to make a switch, probably.
Well, Ham is quite possibly one of the worst head coaches. I mean, if you watch this guy, and I know that we're on a radio, so people can't see what I'm doing, but if you watch this guy, his face just goes, wow, when he's on when he's coaching. He'll just go the entire time.
And I don't know if it's from a lack of...
doing things, but this guy's a horrible, horrible coach. I mean, we saw during, I can't remember if this was during the playoffs or not, but LeBron, there was a play. LeBron, the refs call out on LeBron. LeBron said, I did not touch it. Throw the flag, do it. Darvin Ham, is it Darvin or Darwin?
Darvin.
Okay, Darvin Ham literally just stares at LeBron, does not challenge the play. LeBron is screaming, challenge the play. I did not touch it. And he doesn't challenge it. And the play continues. And then what do we know? When, after a break, LeBron did not touch the basketball. So you're not listening to a guy that is, by some considered, the greatest basketball player of all time, and what everyone considers the greatest mind the basketball world has ever seen. You're not going to listen to him when he says, I did not touch the ball?
No need to do that.
Like this guy, I don't agree with the fact that they fired the entire coaching staff. But Ham had to be fired. And I pray that for whatever team is dumb enough to pick him up,
No one's going to pick him up.
He'll get picked up.
He'll go back to the NCAA.
He'll do it. He'll be an assistant coach or something. I think he should be an assistant coach in the NBA. Head coach, absolutely not.
Yeah. This move, as much as Darvin Ham was not a good head coach, it feels more, hey, LeBron, if we fire him, will you come back next year?
It was, LeBron, if we fire our entire coaching staff and draft your son, will you come back to the Lakers? And the answer is probably yes.
Yeah, he's going. The only thing that really mattered was his son.
Yeah. Wherever his son goes, he's going to go.
Right.
I mean, if Bronny was going to not be drafted into the NBA at this point, he would have already picked a team from the transfer portal that clearly has reached out to him. There's no way that Bronny has not been reached out with multi-million-dollar deals. So Bronny is clearly going to be a one and done. The question really is what team takes that jump? And
is he even worth, like, in my brain, it's hard to separate Bronny James, the name, from Bronny James, the player, right? And I'm trying to look at this from a perspective of if his name was Shane Brisland, how high in the NBA draft would he go?
First overall, baby.
His name was Shane Brisland, and under the context, Shane's dad is not LeBron James.
Yes. Because I feel like he's
Bronny
a late second-round pick.
No, he'd go undrafted because he didn't play for a lot of the time. However, and this is a big caveat, and what I think that not enough people give Bronny James credit for, Bronny James is already an NBA caliber defender. He is a very, very good defender. His scoring is abysmal. And I think he'd be the first one to say that. I mean, the guy averaged less than 5 points last year. But he is a good defender. You cannot argue that he is not a good defender. So if he does get drafted, you get LeBron, but don't discredit the fact that you also get a decent defender. In a game that no one plays defense anymore, you're going to get a guy that's going to try on defense. So that's something to think about. Is he going to be the scorer and playmaker that LeBron?
He's not going to be a starter. He's a bench piece regardless. Like,
he's a wait and see.
If his name was Shane Brisland and he got drafted, he's always going to be a bench piece, at least with where he's at right now. He also wouldn't enter the draft if his name was Shane Brisland.
No.
Yeah.
If his name was Shane
bench
Brisland,
player. This sounds like my hockey career.
if his name was Shane Brisland, he would wait until he was a junior or senior to enter the draft.
Right, and obviously that's why I'm saying it's hard to separate the name Bronny James from the player Bronny James, because it's just what it is. You have the greatest basketball player of all time saying, "Hey, you draft this kid, I'll go play for your team for a year."
I can't agree with your statement simply because you called LeBron the greatest basketball player of all time.
Think of the jersey sales.
And I want to say that is something horrible to say on your last show of a radio show, to say such an outlandish statement as LeBron James.
I'm staking my claim, Peter. My claim. LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time.
No, he's not.
Flag is thoroughly planted in the WXJM desk.
LeBron is the greatest longevity player of all time.
Oh, that's such an unfair argument, though.
There will never be a better player than LeBron in that aspect.
That's so unfair for that to be your reason.
Are you trying to tell me that there is a better 7-year stretch than Michael Jordan's Bulls?
Why 7 years?
Well, because there was a year where he decided he wanted to play baseball. Otherwise, he could have 6-peated.
Hold on. Before we continue, we've reached the top of the hour here on WXJM 88.7 FM, Harrisonburg, Virginia, and WXJM.org. You're listening to the Triple Threat Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today, I am joined by my two friends and co-hosts,
Shane Brisland.
And
Peter.
It's an unfair argument, and I'll tell you why. Because it's not his fault that he can play longer than everybody else.
Technology is better today.
Yeah.
But also, like, you look at
I don't want to hear a competition thing.
I'm not talking about competition. That is also an unfair argument.
That is the worst argument. Whenever someone says LeBron is better because he has harder competition, my argument to them is yes, because Michael Jordan was supposed to teleport into the future.
No, I agree with you. That also is a super dumb. That's also a super dumb argument, and there's dumb arguments on both sides. Don't get me wrong. But
can we both agree that the people who say Bill Russell is the best are the dumbest people on the planet?
Yes. But it's so impressive what he's been able to do. Longevity is not something that you can just be like, oh, he's only this good because of longevity. Being able to stay this good for this long is something that is important to the argument as well. You can't just discount that as a negative thing. It's not like he's just getting counting stats. He's playing meaningful minutes. This isn't like a Frank Gore situation where he played for 30 years on super bad teams and just got 300 yards a season, as at the end of his career. This isn't a situation like that. This is a situation where he's still arguably a top 10 player in the league, definitely top 15, 20 years in. That is something that's worthy of being propped up, not sent down in this discussion, I think.
LeBron is my number 2, and that's where he's going to stay. If he wins one more ring, he still won't be number 1. But if LeBron, I can understand why someone would say LeBron is the greatest of all time. But it's not close. It's Michael. The fact of the matter is, Michael never lost in the finals. He had 6 for 6. LeBron's 4 for 10.
I don't care about rings. Honestly, I think in a team sport, bringing up rings when comparing individuals is stupid.
Okay, so when Michael left, how many rings has the Bulls won?
How many rings have the Heat won without LeBron? How many wins have the
Cavaliers?
That was in 06.
But you just
how many rings?
How many rings?
How many rings have the Cavs won without him?
Okay, well they're in Cleveland. No one wants to play.
This is my point. It's a team game.
But Jeremy, tell me how many rings LeBron has in total.
4.
Okay, 4 rings. How many rings does the Chicago Bulls have in total?
6.
6. How many rings does Michael Jordan have?
He has 6.
There you go.
My friend.
But that's like
how many rings do the Cleveland Cavaliers have?
Once again, no one wants to live in Chicago.
How many rings do the Cleveland Cavaliers have without LeBron James?
Wait, Jeremy. I have a good hockey analogy for this. It's like saying Patrick Maroon is a better player than Alex Ovechkin because he has 3 rings and Ovechkin has 1. And Patrick Maroon's just like a 4th-line bottom 6 guy.
Okay.
That's not the same thing, actually, but I understand what you're trying to say.
Like, rings shouldn't be everything. Just because you have more rings, that doesn't make you automatically a better player.
The argument isn't just rings. The argument is LeBron has gone to the finals 10 times, has lost 6 of them.
Michael Jordan has gone to the finals 6 times.
4 of
Michael
those were
Jordan has
against
gone
the
to the finals
dynasty.
6 times.
4 of those
going to the finals is nothing to snuff at.
Peter, I'm not trying to argue against Michael Jordan
Let's see. Okay.
and how great he is, because he
Michael Jordan
is number 2 on my list. But
number 1.
yeah, I understand. This isn't something that you're going to change your mind
Michael
on.
Jordan played 15 seasons. Of those 15 seasons, he went to the finals 6 times, won 6, was the finals MVP all 6 times. Let's see. How many seasons has LeBron played?
20 seasons. He's
He's
been to
played
10
20.
finals.
He's been to 10 finals. We'll probably finish around 22. So, how could it possibly be? There's a great thing. Okay.
I don't know what you're trying to pull here.
Michael Jordan versus LeBron James accolades. All right. Here is a breakdown. Michael Jordan has 6 championships to LeBron's 4. Michael Jordan has 6 finals MVPs to LeBron's 4. So that takes away it's a team sport.
It doesn't. It
because
really
he was
doesn't.
the best player. Michael Jordan, in the 15 years that he played, he was in 11 All-NBAs. LeBron in the 20 has been to 18. All defensive selections, Michael Jordan has been to 9. LeBron has been to 6. And then career player efficiency rating, Michael Jordan has a 27.9. LeBron is a 27.3.
It's the same.
Michael
Jordan
Jordan
has 5 season MVPs. LeBron has 4.
Okay. Okay. I mean,
I'll give you one thing. They both were the Rookie of the Year.
I mean, a lot of what you're saying is like, oh, they're the same. They're on the same tier.
Not even close, Jeremy.
You cannot seriously sit here and tell me that it's not close. After everything you've just read off, you cannot sit here and tell me that it's not close.
Not even on the same tier is wild.
Like, I understand your argument that Jordan is better. I do 100%. You cannot look me in the eye and be 100% serious and tell me that they are not on the same level. That is insane to me.
If LeBron wins either one more MVP or one more NBA Finals, then I'll give it to him. Not the best overall.
I think it's insane that you can't even say they're on the same tier. Honestly, like regardless of who you think is better.
Listen, there is no other tier for GOAT. As in, like, there's one person.
Okay.
There's only one person that can be on the GOAT tier.
I understand.
And then there's LeBron. There's no one on LeBron's tier. And then there's everyone else. It's GOAT, then tier 1. In my book, you can't have someone on the same tier as someone who's the greatest of all time. It's not two greatest of all time. It is the greatest of all time.
Fair.
Kareem isn't on LeBron's level. Wilt's not on LeBron's level. LeBron's alone, but he's alone on tier number 2.
Well, it's wild to say they're not even close. Like, there's a reason why everyone's making these comparisons.
The reason why everyone's making these comparisons is because people didn't watch Michael Jordan, and I didn't watch Michael Jordan, and I'm willing to admit that he's the better player. I watched LeBron my entire life.
How far ago did these play? Like 20, 30 years?
Jordan played late 80s, 90s, a little into the 2000s.
Yeah, so it's like over like 20 years, 30 years.
Well, they overlapped for a season or two, didn't they?
I didn't realize how long Jordan played for.
LeBron was drafted in 03.
Jordan retired twice, though.
Jordan retired in 04? Or something like that? I think they overlapped for a year or two.
I know that Jordan's last year, he still averaged like 21 points a game.
He's playing on the Wizards, though, so it doesn't really count.
Yeah. Also, I'll be the first to tell you, look at his field goal percentage. Got shot like 50 shots a game.
I mean, because he was the Wizards. Like,
well, I think he was the general manager at the time, too.
Yeah.
Which, when it comes to being a GM, LeBron is much better than Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is the worst GM in the history of basketball. But, listen, you know what? Let's give our top 5s of greatest basketball players of all time.
All right. LeBron is 1. Jordan is 2.
When did LeBron pass you?
This season.
Pass Michael Jordan.
This season.
This season.
Maybe
what did
last
he
season.
do this season?
Honestly,
that made you be like, okay, yeah, he's a good.
It was really just being as good as he was in year 20. Honestly, there were a lot of things. It was just kind of building over time. It wasn't anything in particular.
But my point is if he doesn't pass Jordan in your mind, but I'll let you finish. I just want to say this quick thing. If he doesn't pass Jordan in your mind when he gets the scoring title, then, like the all-time scoring title, then I just feel like he can't pass him at that point, unless he wins another ring. If LeBron won another ring, I'd say he's the greatest of all time.
It's fair.
But go for it.
But no, yeah. I've got LeBron, Jordan, Wilt, Kareem, and then Shaq probably at 5.
Shaq at 5.
Maybe.
I
Maybe
don't
Kobe.
hate. I don't hate
know.
it. I know. What about you, Shane? Do you got a list?
I think I'm leaning more towards LeBron over Jordan for number 1. And then I do not know much about basketball. I feel like Kobe's somewhere in the top 5. Kareem is probably up there. And I don't know who to put also in the top 5. I know Larry Bird gets talked around a lot, but he also like didn't play as long.
He's back like broke.
Yeah.
So what I said earlier in the show, Shane, is actually true. His mom needed her driveway like asphalted, and instead of paying someone with all the money he was making, he did it himself. He completely blew out his back, like completely, and had to play like the rest of his career in excruciating pain. When he would get subbed out, he would have to lie on the floor and take like a huge dose of painkillers to play.
Yeah.
And there was also like Magic Johnson and his career cut short. Yeah.
Well, wait, did he? No, it was HIV.
It was HIV.
Yeah, it never
moved on,
turned
but
into
yeah.
AIDS. Luckily.
But yeah, no, all those guys are. I mean, there's a reason that you know them, Shane.
Yeah.
You know.
I do not follow basketball at all, and I've heard of these players.
Right, and honestly, that's the criteria to be an all-time great.
Yeah.
Is you don't know anything about the sport and you've heard of it.
Are you synonymous with the sport?
Right. So really, any of those guys that you know, you throw them into a top 5. Maybe it's a little outrageous, but it's not going to be like there's no way that you said that.
Yeah, Bird's probably. Bird's interesting. Number 1, easily Michael Jordan. Number 2, LeBron. That's also easily. No one's close. Number 3. I'll give it to Kareem, as much as that hurts me to say. Because I don't like Kareem. Number 4, you have to give it to Kobe. I mean, look what he did when he won back-to-back. That team was filled with bums, and he somehow won back-to-back with them. I mean, you say team sport, that was Kobe. Completely. That was a one-man team. I mean, people are, he had Pau Gasol. What did Pau Gasol do after that? And so, number 5, it's got to be a center.
I just hate putting like Shaq up there because the dude couldn't shoot.
Didn't need to shoot.
Yeah, I know.
He's the most dominant player of all time.
He's 7 feet tall and 300 pounds. No one could stop that man.
To put in perspective,
That's my pet peeve. It's like playing hockey but like not knowing how to shoot the puck. It's just like it's kind of like the biggest part of basketball, and you weren't good at it.
Shane, imagine in hockey a player.
I think it's like Jeremy's goalie
Shane,
and Walrus
yep,
situation.
Yep, that's exactly what it is.
No.
That's exactly what I was about to say to you.
Like,
imagine a goalie that is literally 6'4".
Yeah, that's what I was what I was about to say as well. Just imagine someone that was in front of the goal, so it was impossible to score.
He doesn't need to move, Shane. He just has to sit there.
To put in perspective, Shane,
But
Shaq did not practice, and he still is the most dominant player of all time. It's very heavily argued that if he practiced as hard as like even half of the players in the NBA did, he'd be easily the best player of all time, and he'd probably have 8 championships. That's how great he was. But number 5, I'm going to give it to Tim Duncan.
I love that, actually. I love Tim Duncan. He doesn't get enough praise.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't get enough praise because his personality was to be nice and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, if you look at this guy's accolades, there's really the fact that he's not in more people's top 5s.
People forget about him because
I mean,
he was a quiet superstar.
Anything.
Mm-hmm. I saw a recent picture of him. He's a completely different person. You would not recognize him walking down the street. He like grew out his hair. He's got a big beard now.
He had that like right after he retired. Like right after he retired, he went away for a few months and then he came back with full dreadlocks and a beard, and people were like, "What?"
But no, I love that. Tim Duncan doesn't get enough respect.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's basketball. There's a lot more. I don't know. I don't think
Peter
anybody's.
wasn't here for our draft reaction, so
Were you not?
No.
so if he wants to talk about the
Tell me about the draft. I was gonna read you the names of the Kentucky Derby horses from today, and we were gonna pick winners. But if you'd rather talk about the draft, Peter, let's hear your thoughts.
Okay. I'll quickly do because I do want to hear that, but I'll quickly.
Give me the rest.
Okay, so Caleb Williams was obvious. James was just simply because of how much his agent talked crap of Commanders.
Right.
I'm glad that agent being a baby did not affect him, because, I mean, that's money that gets thrown down the drain for every pick you go down. But I like him at the Commanders. Drake May, I think the New England Patriots did an incredible job.
It's a great pickup for them.
Great pickup, and then they got 2 wide receivers, both of which are very good. I think Baker will be the better of the two, but Polk has never been the number one guy. And then the next quarterback that was taken off of the board was Michael Penix. I hated that at first. I like it a lot more now. I still think it's a stupid pick, just simply because I think they could have traded back to 10 and picked him up there. And I know people keep on saying, well, people were trying to trade up. They were trying to trade around 10. They wanted the Jets pick. And so if they had traded back to 10, Jets would have gone up because they would have then been able to leapfrog the Bears and pick Rome Odazune, which is who they wanted really badly. So it would have been a win-win. But I hated it at first, but the more I thought about it, Kirk Cousins is old and he's becoming injury prone.
Coming off an Achilles tear.
We have no idea. He looks good throwing, but we will not know how he actually looks until real game time. So I don't blame it, but I really want them to stop the narrative of we want to win now, because you guys don't want to win now, and it's very clear you don't.
Well, no, they said they wanted to do the Packers model, which the Packers worked a little differently, right? They had an established quarterback, been there for 15 years at that point, and they drafted him in the 20s. Also, the quarterbacks they drafted were young. Michael Penix is 24 right now, I believe. He'll be 28 by the time Kirk Cousins' contract runs out, and you'll basically have to pick up that fifth-year option off of blind faith, unless you kick Kirk Cousins to the curb before.
And they did set up his contract where that's a possibility. But no, the GM has also said in interviews when asked, he's like, "No, we're trying to win now as well." It's like, no, you're not. Like, it's very clear you're not. Don't try and deceive your fans. Just say, we want to be strong now, but we also believe in building for the future. Don't say that you're competing for a Super Bowl as well.
Right. I don't mind the pick. I'm a big Michael Penix fan.
I know.
But the situation doesn't make any sense.
At 10, J.J. McCarthy got drafted.
Yep. Vikings traded up to go get him.
By 1. That was such a stupid move. Because the Jets weren't going to draft him, and no one was going to trade up for 10 for J.J.
The Broncos were trying to.
They weren't going to be able to. I don't think so. I think that they were fine with either Bo Nix or J.J. McCarthy, so I think that they were going to wait and see. But yeah, so J.J. McCarthy got drafted to the Vikings. I think J.J. McCarthy is the sleeper this year on well, not this year, next year on being the best rookie. Simply because you have the best wide receiver in the league to throw to now.
Yeah.
And you have a great running back in Aaron Jones to help, take away some of that defensive pressure, so they won't just never fill the box and do zone the entire time. And then Bo Nix got drafted to the Broncos. I did not like the pick until they drafted Troy Franklin.
I don't care. Bo Nix should never have gone in the first round.
I agree. I'm not saying he should. I think they should trade back and then drafted him. But I like the pick more because they drafted Troy Franklin. Will probably be wide receiver 1 now.
Maybe. The Broncos still have a really solid receiver room.
My argument of all time when it comes to wide receivers and quarterbacks is look to see who the quarterback's best friend is, and that guy will be wide receiver 1.
Right, and they're going to have a lot of chemistry right there, but I don't think Troy Franklin is better than Courtland Sutton.
He's definitely not, but he's also Bo Nix's best friend. So
I don't think Troy Franklin is even better than Tim Patrick, actually. Maybe he is.
I don't dislike Tim Patrick. I think that Troy Franklin got a lot of hate because he ran the gauntlet in the combine, the worst I think I've ever seen.
When he is going to be on the field, he'll get a lot of targets. I don't think he'll see the field enough to be wide receiver 1.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Bo Nix is going to make him wide receiver 1. I think that he's just going to say to Sean Payton, he's my best friend, please. And then after Bo Nix, there was a huge quarterback drought until Spencer Rattler.
He went like day 3, 4th, 5th round.
But he went to the Saints, which was an incredible spot for him. That's exactly the team that he should have gone to. Because as much as the Saints want to act like they wanted a quarterback, they didn't want a quarterback. They wanted a backup quarterback. And now he can learn under what not to do by watching Derek Carr. And
doesn't he want to learn how to get counting stats?
I don't know. Derek Carr has a long career, so
he's got the counting stats. Derek Carr can't argue longevity.
And but yeah, the best pick in the entire first round was. I also want to say Joe Milton to the Patriots. If people do not realize that Joe Milton is no longer a quarterback, but he's a tight end, I have another thing to tell you.
I can't wait for Joe Milton to throw 3 balls a season as your Hail Mary specialist.
He's going to be their Taysom Hill. So,
I cannot wait for them to trot him out at the end of the first half when they're at their own 30-yard line and say, chuck it.
Yeah. Taysom Hill will be their. Joe Milton will be their Taysom Hill. But the best pick in the first round. I feel like you get the best pick if you draft the best player. So I guess the Cardinals drafted Marvin Harrison Jr.
It's a great pick. My favorite pick for value is the Colts getting Liatu Latu at pick 15.
I said on this show, I think he's the best edge rusher in this draft. I'm terrified he's going to get injured.
That is the one thing with him.
But I agree. The Colts grabbing the best value pick by far was the Colts pick. And that's you can't argue with that. The Vikings trading back up.
I liked it. They gave up way too much.
They gave up way
a third, a fourth, and a fifth.
I think, they could have gone one down or even one up to a team. I think I can't remember who they traded with for that.
I think they traded with the Jags.
Yeah. That's way too much for what they got in return.
They needed an edge rusher, though. That was a need.
Yeah. Well, apparently the Falcons originally were going to try and trade for 10 as well. So they wanted 8 and 10. It was like, okay, so you were actually going to mortgage your future. But best pick best overall pick, you got to give it to the best player on paper, which is Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, there's no such thing as a guarantee in the NFL. Anything could happen. Marvin Harrison Jr. is the closest thing to a guarantee that you're going to see.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Who had your least favorite and favorite draft, real quick, and then we'll move on to the Kentucky Derby.
Least favorite draft. Who did really bad? I'm blanking.
My least favorite draft was the Falcons. Not only because of the Michael Penix pick, which in the future will be fine, but right now,
I think Raiders for me.
I like the Raiders draft, actually.
I think it is a good draft, but I think that they have a bunch of assets to use for Gardner Minshew, which is just a horrible decision.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
Minshew's only going to be there for a year or two, so.
Yeah, but who's to say that they are going to be in a position? When are we going to see the next quarterback? Because next year's quarterback class is horrible. So when Shedeur Sanders is your best quarterback in that class, you know that you're in a bad way.
Shedeur Sanders would have gone ahead of Bo Nix in this draft. Shedeur Sanders
he would've.
would have gone. There would have been 7 if he came out this year. There would have been 7 quarterbacks in the first round,
Oh, yeah, definitely. But
and he would have been a Bronco most likely.
people are starting to see that the guy.
I think he might have even gone ahead of J.J. McCarthy.
I don't know. J.J. McCarthy was really talked up towards the end
It was dumb.
to the fact that he almost got picked at the 4th, and that was not like a rumor. The Vikings actually almost traded up for 4 to draft him.
Considering how much the Vikings could have given up for J.J. McCarthy, I'm glad we only traded up 1 spot to get him.
I just don't know why they did. I saw a post right at the draft where someone said, at 10, I'm so happy I put $5,000 on J.J. McCarthy getting drafted after 10. Like, this was at around like the 8 or 9 slot. Like, and then people all responded, "Oh no!" The guy like didn't post anything for the rest of the night.
That's brutal.
Yeah, I think that I would purposely root against the Vikings in every single way for the rest of the time.
It's not like they didn't give that much up to move up 1 spot.
No, but the combination of getting both Dallas Turner and J.J. McCarthy, that was a lot. They gave up almost the entire draft class next season.
Yeah.
They have 2 picks in next year's draft. They have their first rounder, which is great to leave this draft with your first rounder still, and they have a 5th rounder.
And
That's
then
And we still desperately need corners and safeties.
Yeah.
'Cause one of our top picks is a bust.
my favorite draft class was the Lions. They got every single thing they needed.
The Lions had a great class.
How Terrion Arnold fell to the Lions in their pick. I know they traded up. It's funny because I was like, I had a long day during the NFL draft, so I was like, I'm not going to be able to stay up for the Lions pick, and I was heading to bed, and then got a notification the Lions are on the clock, and I was like, okay, and I just turned it on, and I saw that Terrion Arnold was still there, and I was like, oh my god.
Ugh. But yeah, no. NFL draft, I don't think anybody really had an awful draft class, honestly.
No. This was a really strong draft class.
Yeah.
Hopefully it stays that way once they actually go into the NFL. But it wasn't like last year where at a certain point people were like, who cares? like who cares about these picks? Like who cares about these picks? 6th round and 7th round that I was like,